Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Art of the Spiel, the podcast where we will be recapping PatORG Season 24, The Art of the Steal. I am one of your hosts, Nico, and this is our Episode 2 recap now. Um, as always, I have with me my fellow host, Sarah. How's it going, Sarah?
Hi, Nico. It's going really well. We had a pretty straightforward vote this time around, but a lot going on both tribes that I'm excited to break down with you and our guests today.
Yes, and we're not alone today. We also have with us last season's pre-merge fan favorite and all-around agreed sort of robbed goddess, shall we say? It's Carolyn. Hey, Carolyn, how's it going?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
It's so good to have you. So we do come into this round where we've seen Adrian has decided to pull herself from the game, and Chase is voted out. Chase? CJ, my apologies. He's voted out unanimously, and DeLuca even idles away his sole vote against her. So on the surface, it might look like we have sort of united tribes either side, where there's no one currently with a vote against them. But underneath the surface, we can tell there's a lot more going on, and a lot of plans are being made. Definitely on the Louvre tribe that weren't able to execute their plans to ultimately get Nick voted out. We saw that there were, I think, seven of the nine votes in. I think that's the right number. Yeah, seven of the nine votes in were for Nick. So we have a lot of plans going on there. But we do have a reward challenge, I believe, straight away. Sarah, do you want to tell us a bit about the reward challenge?
Yeah, so the reward challenge was kind of my nightmare. Was unable to complete the math challenge we had on season 22, and there are five math equations here that people have to complete. And we end up seeing Cody from Guggenheim coming out on top here with a really good time, and get some extra money for an item that goes up for auction that is not something that people are going to be outbidding each other, interestingly, this time. It's anybody who wants to spend $100 can purchase this next item, which is kind of interesting and different from how we've done it in the previous round. So, Carolyn, what were your thoughts about the reward challenge overall and how the auction worked this round?
Well, Patrick has a little challenge testers, so I actually tried it before everybody else did, and my time was like terrible. It was like 20 minutes, and I am like embarrassed. I think I was just trying a little too hard on the first three, like really thinking like I don't know what I was doing, but for some reason I got the last three before the first or the last two before the first three. But with these players, I cannot believe how fast Cody did it. He's awesome. I was very interested to see this auction item when it came out because it was definitely a little different than anything that we've seen. I mean, I even tried to figure out what the idol clues were and I couldn't figure it out at all. And I was very surprised how fast Brian found it. I know that Brian's done other orgs and he has his own, but I was shocked to see like how fast he could do that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, I've seen in the past how difficult and like not straightforward these clues can be, and I think they usually take a few kind of clues to be able to kind of put it all together. So the fact that he managed to get it with just that is really quite impressive. Like you, I do usually like to test the reward challenges beforehand, but I didn't quite get round to it this time. But either way, I could tell the scores, especially from Cody, were super impressive. I know the last challenge I came like last compared to everyone who actually completed it. So I'm with you there on taking a long time compared to everyone else. But yeah, we do ultimately see that Brian is able to kind of piece it together, and then that's just enough to unlock the idol hunt. So he gets the idol hunt down, but he still has some more tasks to do. And one of them is the infamous, is it Astro Alpaca?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
that requires like a score of like 25,000, which historically has been like a huge stumbling block for a lot of people trying to get through these. Do we did he actually have to do that one? I can't remember because he had up to five attempts with the different
He did
tasks
do
and
that
everything.
one and he did it really quickly.
Right, just craziness. So definitely one to watch. As you say, he's got org experience. But we do actually end up seeing sort of a bit later that Chris is also able to kind of get on the right track. Sarah, what did you think of this? And someone kind of newer to the game, able to do something really impressive. Maybe not be the first one there, but still do it in really impressive time.
I was very, very impressed with Chris here. Chris has been an interesting person to track on Guggenheim. He really was overplaying at the beginning. But to see him like sort of putting his like big brain efforts into the idol hunt and figure it out was super impressive for a newbie. Just to get on the right track because there's a lot of people doing the idol search in the meantime, and a lot of them just aren't on the right track, which is understandable if you don't know what to look for. So he worked through the slide puzzle today. He was giving updates on that, struggled through alpaca but eventually got that, and he's trying to figure out the color combination now, which is basically just luck of the draw. And we also have Deluca, who has the idol password as well to get the hunt going, who she was working through some stuff today as well. So definitely not as quick on Guggenheim, but there are people making progress on it, so it'll be interesting to see if there is a second idol to unlock on the other tribe.
Yeah, we see, I think, as many as I count right, 13 people purchased this for the $100, which is quite a cheap amount to kind of. It's not putting a massive dent in what a lot of the people have been able to earn. But ultimately, a lot of these people are still looking around, naturally assuming that it's not been able to be worked out just yet from what they've got. I mean, there's sort of rearranging the first sort of letter of each of the lines, and within that, you're able to find things like art heist and command. So I'm not sure if ultimately that will be sort of part of the train or trail that gets to a further clue. But we see that that's kind of puzzling a lot of people. And yeah, there's still people working it out unbeknownst to them that Brian has it. And I think Brian's even in alliance chats kind of discussing it with people, that kind of saying, oh, have you spotted this? And it's all very funny to watch. Um, Another thing that was funny to watch on that sort of theme was one of the challenges Brian had to do was to make an alliance chat with someone from his tribe, uh, randomly and not included, and it ends up being Jesse. Uh, People do not get to see who the alliance is made by, so we have a lot of people speculating who has made this alliance. Carolyn, do you want to talk about this sort of alliance chat and the lack of Jesse being in it, and kind of people's speculations, I guess, of who might have done it?
Yeah, everybody seemed pretty confused by the situation. Everybody asking, who did it? Was it you? Was it you? Nobody really fessing up to it. I mean, we know it's Brian, but they don't. And Brian even asked Patrick, like, "Oh, maybe it was made by Jesse. Like, do you have to be in the alliance for the alliance to be made?" And Patrick did a screenshot of the rules saying that you did. So they were like, "Okay, well, it's not Jesse," which is interesting to me that Jesse's actually out because Jesse supposedly is like running the tribe according to like some people. And so for Jesse to be out is pretty strategic, but also I think I would have put Jesse in if I had the choice to do that. But everybody's playing it cool. Like Brian is not giving any indication that it was him or that he has the idol. So he's playing really great.
Yeah, we sort of see like the experience showing in how Brian's handling all these situations that are being thrown at him. Meanwhile, on the other tribe, on Guggenheim, we have Chris have to make the alliance, and ironically, the person left out of the alliance he makes is Mars. But he immediately claims ownership of this alliance. It's like, oh, I just wanted to see if it would work. Oh, I left out Mars. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. So one of the few, like, well, one of the, many faux pas we kind of see him getting tripped up on, one a lot bigger to come later, I think, that's kind of having his consequences unravel now. But, yeah, seeing that experience from Brian to obviously doesn't want anyone to know he has the idol or has gotten onto the idol hunt or made this alliance. Meanwhile, Chris is like so quick to jump out and be like, oh, it was me. And so obviously that doesn't look too good. So it's kind of funny seeing like the tale of the two idol hunts going on simultaneously, one being handled by a very experienced player, one by a new player. So I've been entertained by both so far.
Yes, and we do have an immunity challenge. Last round, we saw that they were playing for individual immunity, and thankfully this time they do get to play for tribal immunity. We see Louvre kind of do a very good job. So I think coming into it, we had a sort of altered version of the scavenger hunt where they had an alphabetical list to go through to find. I think I wasn't keeping too close an eye on Guggenheim, but it seemed like Louvre were definitely able to do it in sort of a good time. And then I think we lead on to sort of some wax sculptures, which is always fun to kind of see people kind of doing their own. Like we see more from people in the sense of them putting like expressions and things like that, and kind of gives us a bit more character behind these people. What was that for you like, Carolyn, getting to see kind of a bit more flavor behind the screens?
Yeah, I really liked this challenge. I liked that there were many different elements to it. I actually wrote a lot of notes on it. So I'll be going through all of them. So museum lobby, which is the first one, is again kind of like a scavenger hunt. And it was very interesting to see Guggenheim first. They were very like, okay, guys, wow, like it's a scavenger hunt. Like, let's do a Google spreadsheet and let's see who has all these things. And it was just taking a long time for them to even like get started. Um, they ended up skipping 3 items, which was quilts, rope barrier, and yo-yo, giving them a 15-minute penalty. And Louvre was just like in it. Like Brian's like, okay, let's do this. Like, let's go. Like, everybody get your stuff. Like, let's start posting it. And they had no skips, no penalties at all. They ended their time at 38 minutes, and Guggenheim did 44 minutes with a 15-minute penalty. So that was already starting off like with a huge difference. The origami was actually funny. They had origami cranes they had to do, and Justin on Loom already had one made, but then on Guggenheim they had to actually make it. So DeLuca and Danny were trying to make it, and eventually Danny got it, but it that took a while for them to do. As well as the lasers. Louvre pulled it out because I forgot who it was. What's his name?
It was Andy in that one.
Um, no, somebody works at a laser clinic.
Oh, sorry, I
Oh,
thought you meant the.
Hunter.
I skipped
Yeah.
ahead. Yeah.
Hunter,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
Hunter had like a laser at work, so that's how they got laser. But Tom was trying to say like, can we do laser disc player? Can we say like laser focus? It was really funny. It was cute. But I really liked that one. And then we went to museum gallery, which was wax sculptures. So there were like a few pictures, 5 pictures that the teams had to imitate. Ryan Ehrlich, Randy Bailey, Colton Cumby, Cumby, Eliza Orleans, and Angelina Keeley. Like they were just different like different parts of scenes of Survivor. Guggenheim finished in 4 minutes, while Louvre finished in five. So actually, Guggenheim did better in this one, but only by a minute, so it really didn't really make a difference. I really like seeing those pictures. Did you guys enjoy that?
That was really fun. Those are such like iconic Survivor like moments and poses. So the recreations were really, really cute. I enjoyed everything about that.
The jacket one though, that one was
Oh
so
my
funny.
god,
Like,
standing there waiting for the jacket. Oh, Angelina. Love her.
can I have the jacket? No? Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
these are.
eh,
I just wanted to say from last season, I remember you were obviously one of the people who did the sort of camp rock thing, and that kind of almost with the campfire twist allowed you to almost bond over it with Marcus. Do you feel like these sort of
yeah.
things can like do more in the game sense for kind of bringing people together?
I mean, it did for me and Marcus, but I don't know if it can, since there isn't really a way to connect with the other side. I really don't think it really does anything in that way. The only thing it does for me, I think, is it recognizes who the people are that are strong, but it also puts a target on their back. So we find that in Louvre, like it was obviously Brian, and Guggenheim, a lot of it was DeLuca. She was the main person, the leader on that team, where as Chase was really strong also. And everybody contributed, but it was mostly like DeLuca leading the charge on that tribe.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and I'm kind of wondering because I was getting a little nervous for DeLuca because she was taking a lot of the lead, leading up to the challenge. Like she organized a poll in the tribe chat, when people are available, and she was like sort of the one like leading the charge and organizing things. Like, is that a good role to take? Do you want to be a leader leading up to and during challenges, or does it rub people the wrong way potentially?
I mean, for me, I know that in the scavenger hunt, I was like, people were trying to talk about like, let's do a Netflix movie night. And I'm like, hey guys, like, let's do the competition. And then we I felt so I was like, "Sorry, guys, I'm just really competitive. I just really wanted to do this challenge." And I felt like it was not a great thing for me to say, but at the same time, I really wanted to win. And we did,
And you
but
won,
I was just
so
like,
yeah, it
yeah.
paid off, right? But I remember Dee Dee in their cons was like, "Yes, Carolyn, I'm sitting in my canoe with my espresso maker and like whatever items like they couldn't find." So it like they're
Well, I think
definitely
she
yeah,
worked
yeah.
oh, sorry. I think they said they worked at like a coffee house or
Mhm, mhm.
something, so that's why wouldn't they have an espresso
Right,
maker?
exactly. So yeah, it's just funny to see that. But you guys won. You didn't have to vote anyone out, so and that's what we see happen for the Louvre here.
Yeah. Okay, moving on. So the next one was Museum Exhibit Hall, where they had to unscramble words. And we found that not only was it art related, but it was heist related as well. Um, I immediately saw Sistine Chapel and I literally kept yelling at my phone, like, Sistine Chapel, Sistine Chapel. And it took Guggenheim a really long time to get it. But Danny actually cheated. He admitted to it in his cons. He used like an unscrambler, and they still skipped one and spelled one incorrectly, which was Frida Kahlo. Um, but they did put it in order. They made it really nice for like specs and everybody. And I think that they thought you might have to do it. Whereas Louvre didn't put it in order at all. They answered it all, and only one was incorrect. So it turned out that Louvre did it in a time of 26 minutes with a 5-minute penalty, and Guggenheim did it in 30 minutes, but had two wrongs or one wrong and then one skipped, which was a 10-minute penalty. So again, we see that Guggenheim's falling short, taking a long time, which is
Oof.
very opposite.
Yeah.
But that one was fun, a fun challenge. Next, we went to the lecture hall, where this one person had to transcribe. They had to like listen to a message that Shay said in a video kind of chat thing, and then one person had to transcribe, and another person had to say it back dramatically. So with Guggenheim, we saw that Katie was transcribing, and she actually had a lot of trouble doing that. She had to repeat it she had to edit it around 4 times. And at this point, Chase was repeating it as well. So he had to record 4 different um, video clips. So their time turned out to be 44 minutes with 4 tries. Whereas Brian typed out on Louvre and Justin did the reading, and they only took 11 minutes with 1 try. So Guggenheim took 4 times the amount that Louvre did, which was insane.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Like a lot of them, when they were asked in their confessionals today why they lost the challenge, they pointed to this part of the challenge specifically with the transcribing and the repeating. So, yeah, they really struggled with it, which is crazy to me because I feel like it's very straightforward. But yep, that definitely did not help with their or when they were already down as well in terms of the time. So, yikes.
Yeah, I wonder if they're going to be looking at Katie on that and maybe blaming
Mm-hmm.
her.
Right. Yeah.
Our next challenge was Museum Office, where the tribe had no idea what they were going to do. They just had to pick 6 people to go into different rooms where they had to do a task. Well, we find out that they had to do individual jigsaw puzzles. Um, Louvre took 22 minutes, where Jesse actually took the longest with 18 minutes compared to Justin's 4 minute and 23 seconds. We could see that a lot of people in their confessionals were getting really like upset at Jesse for taking a long time. Some people finished their puzzles 2 or 3 times while they were waiting. And Guggenheim took 16 minutes, which they did better. Amoya took 15 minutes and 34 seconds to Danny's 5 minutes and 9 seconds. So that was actually a really quick game, which was really nice to see, but yeah, it was kind of frustrating to see Jesse take so long and Brian being so mad about it and other people on their tribe. Next we did museum security. So the teams had to quote unquote break into a computer and they had to translate some Morse code. So I actually when I was listening to it, I heard that Guggenheim, five of them were like talking all at once, trying to tell like tell Chris like what to say. Like they were saying like dot dot dash dash dash, all talking at the same time, like no kind of order whatsoever. But then DeLuca took over and they were finally able to complete the challenge. Louvre I didn't listen to, but they both ended up being 10 minutes. So I think Guggenheim could have had a better time. However, because of the disorder and everybody talking at once, it was really hard for them to keep a lead on that challenge. Lastly, our last little bit of the challenge was Museum Vault. And this was just a fun one that I guess the curators wanted to put on just to see people dancing. But they're supposed to avoid lasers. But Pat said do like a silly dance. So Chase on Guggenheim just danced by himself and he took 6 minutes to do and upload. Whereas in Louvre, Andy actually avoided lasers and did like a whole like Mission Impossible kind of thing, and that only took 2 minutes. So that was a 4 minute difference. In the end, Louvre had a total time of 2 hours and 6 minutes with 21 seconds, and Guggenheim did 3 hours, 8 minutes, and 51 seconds, which is a difference of like an hour and 2 minutes, which is insane.
Yeah, I think Patrick called it like a blowout when he announced the results from this challenge. So, what was the feeling like on Louvre once those were announced, Nico? Was it like relief? Were they excited, surprised?
It did seem like relief. A lot of people thought that they were going to, once they heard the blowout, they were worried that they were on the receiving end of having lost. So I do think a lot of people were really happy to have won in that spot, especially with behind the scenes kind of plans kind of rejigging. Again, we saw them not being able to kind of uh, follow through on their plan to get rid of Mick last week. And I think following last week, Conrad in particular advised that Hunter go to Talia and Nick and sort of do damage control. So we had seen uh, Hunter not do the maybe best job of kind of saying sorry, and Talia and Nick initially seeming like I don't buy it, but okay. But down the line, we I think do see a potential sort of rejigging happening because Brian is pulled into a six-person alliance, but he's told essentially to by Conrad that he's in at number six spot. Well, the way Conrad words it is that we'd like you to be our sixth. So Brian obviously is not best pleased about this and is now sort of planning potentially to change the sort of a majority alliance over there. So again, we have a lot going on Louvre when they're ultimately not going to be able to kind of pull the trigger on anything. But definitely sort of watch this space because yeah, there's so much stuff bubbling there that they haven't been able to pull the trigger on. And I'm very excited to see the fallout once people realize whoever it is not going to be in the majority because I think a lot of people do think that they are. But ultimately, yeah, we do see that Guggenheim is going to be going to tribal. And again, last week we had them not be able to get rid of Mars originally, who was their primary target for um, being sort of on the inactive side, having sort of an ear infection. And I think we see people again hesitant to want to do this, especially when someone's kind of uh, having this sort of situation happen. I think DeLuca's one of the people in particular who feels bad. And I think we're starting to see with DeLuca that everyone is wanting to work with her, and she's finding it really hard to find a reason to get rid of anyone. What do you guys think about the whole situation with DeLuca at the minute, and just how in the middle of things she is?
I love how enthusiastic DeLuca is about being here. I loved how much she fought for herself to stay when she heard her name thrown out last week. It really showed like her drive. Her VidCons are so sweet and personable, and she's so honest in them. I adore DeLuca. However, I am worried about her because she is being clocked as a social threat that she is, and it's hard for her to hide it. She's at the point where literally like other names were getting thrown out to her because she is at kind of the center of the tribe, but she feels close to everyone, literally everyone, and didn't want to vote anyone out, including Mars. But due to Mars's inactivity, she eventually became okay with voting her out. And so Mars kind of quickly became the consensus vote for the tribe, and it ends up being a unanimous vote. But DeLuca, I'm concerned about her, like, because I don't know who she's going to want to go for next year. She ends up locking in a final three during this episode with Chris and Joey, which is really interesting. Apparently, they had a VC and talked things through and settled that. But we do see some complications potentially arising from that with other people on the tribe. So I am a little concerned about her right now and her longevity. What do you think about DeLuca and like the dynamics going on right now in Guggenheim, Carolyn?
I think I totally agree with you. And she honestly just needs to pick an alliance and stick with it. She can be friends with everyone, but she can't keep everyone. So she really needs to just focus on like the two or three people that she's going to be aligned with, and then focus on getting other people out because you just can't keep everybody, and that's unfortunate unless you keep winning, which they're not doing. So I mean, yeah. And also, like, the whole voting Mars out, that was just a little crazy. She was really upset because she was put in alliance with DeLuca, that DeLuca started. And yeah, why would you put somebody in an alliance that you're gonna like just kick out? So I think DeLuca's trying to like make everybody happy, but you can't do that in Survivor. Like like you can't be friends with everybody and expect everybody to stay, is what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
she needs to be backstabbing a little bit more. Like that, it needs to happen eventually. She's just a really good-hearted person, so that's really hard for.
Yeah, and absolutely. And she genuinely did want to work with Mars, I think, especially after the last vote. She talked about wanting to get closer to Mars, but Mars's inactivity sort of worked against her. So I don't know what she would have done if Mars had been around. I think we might have seen a different vote outcome, honestly, because DeLuca did want to work with her. Um, and it really sucked to see Mars go out like this, I think. You know, I just don't think because she was sick and she wasn't as present, like she wasn't able to really fully grasp the full scope of the game and know how much people really were talking and being active. So she didn't understand there was really other dynamics because like, you know, we're just a couple days into the game. Like you would think there's, you know, if you're in an alliance that's solid this early, but if you look at the alliance list right now, it's 20 deep. Literally there's 20 alliances over two tribes. So it's, you know, the game's moving very very quickly, and I know it's the same over on Louvre, even though they didn't have to vote someone out this round. Nico, so are there any like strategic highlights in addition to what you mentioned? I know Brian talked about possibly trying to bring like Hunter and Nick back together. Like there are definitely moving pieces going on over there. We have Conrad doing things, we have Tom doing things. It's definitely busy.
Absolutely, there's so much stuff going on. Just quickly before we move on to Louvre, I did want to mention it's kind of crazy to me that we see Chris wanting to. I understand that DeLuca is in his sort of like top three at the minute, but he mentioned how he's aware that they could have a four with Mars, but they sort of identify. I think him, Katie, and DeLuca identify sort of three duos outside of that foursome, which includes Mars, being what they believe to be Cody and Katie, Danny and Amoya, and Chase and Gabriel. And they're worried that if they get rid of one of these um, duos, that the second person from that duo is then going to specifically know they're on the bottom and create an alliance against DeLuca. And that being because everyone thinks they're good with DeLuca. So obviously, if DeLuca turns on them, they are then thinking, okay, well, this person's not with me and has lied to me. So I think it was almost a way to kind of keep the peace a bit longer. But we're at the point now where if they still believe that same reasoning to be in effect, then next vote, if they lose again, and there's this uh, quote unquote sort of CJ curse to have them losing, then they're not going to be able to do that again, and they are going to have to pick one of these supposed duos to go against. So um, it's just wild to me that it's all about Project like Protect DeLuca, and the effect she's got on these people is kind of crazy to me. Um,
But I
so yeah,
also think that she's in trouble because Chris did post his alliances. Danny found it. Danny is now like telling people about Chris's alliances, a lot of them including DeLuca. And so supposedly DeLuca is one of the people to go next or the time after that, which is crazy because DeLuca and Danny also have an alliance, but she had said that she doesn't really talk to that alliance anymore, and she's actually like shared that alliance with other people. And on the way out, Mars calls out people saying, well, DeLuca, Joey, Chase, and Chris all said they were in alliance with me and then voted me. So trust who you will, have fun. And now everybody's like, okay, like we already knew that these people were like social threats, but are they really controlling all the votes? So they are getting huge targets on their back thanks to Mars.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought this up. I've been dying to talk about this because I feel like this is the headline of this episode, and maybe it would be like a cliffhanger type thing if it was like a real episode of Survivor. But yeah, like Mars dropping those names is one thing because when that happens, like you can do some damage control, like, oh, I don't know what she was talking about. She was just salty. And you know, they're covering saying, like, oh, we just talked about like TV shows or whatever. But then for Danny to simultaneously find, be able to like quickly capture the alliances that Chris accidentally posted in that like very short amount of time before he deleted it, and then choose to share it with like strategically with certain people. He first chooses Gabriel and Amoya to bring them, the three of them together. He had talked about getting more distance from Amoya because he had been trying to get closer to Cody instead. But for some reason, you know, seeing these alliances sparks him to want to bring the three of them together. And Gabriel's not someone we've talked about that much, but he's also in a really good position on Guggenheim. A lot of people like working with him. He's very well liked, and in a bunch of alliances as well. But being brought into this threesome here is really, really interesting because now the three of them are bonded by having this proof of all of these alliances, and they sort of decide what they're going to do next. And this is kind of happening as we're recording, but they eventually decide they're going to make another alliance and bring the three of them together with Chase. Chase is someone who has been struggling through the past episode because of sort of the Chris mistrust situation that happened with DeLuca. So the four of them are kind of now talking through what they want to do here, and I think this could definitely impact the next vote in a really big way if they end up losing immunity again and the CJ curse holds. So yeah, happy to talk about this more. What do you guys think so far of how this is shaping up?
yeah, this is huge. I mean, as you mentioned, it's the thing, two things coinciding. So we've got, I think, Chase being named as one of the people that Mars name dropped, but is not one of the ones that, from what we've seen, I'm not actually sure what alliance there was with Mars there and what was going on there. But other than that, we do have sort of Katie and Chris DeLuca name drop. And yeah, we see from the screenshot that Danny has, or like the picture that Danny has from what Chris posted, DeLuca is in 5 out of the 6 names there, with the one her not being in is that sort of 3K alliance. So I think it's very hard when presented with that image to doubt that Chris and DeLuca are together. I mean, that doesn't just happen by coincidence if you're not actually together. So it's going to be very hard to kind of ignore this. I mean, unless if you think, I mean, the image is there to tell you if your alliance is there. Do you think that is the alliance? And if your name isn't there, then can you really believe that DeLuca, who everyone to some extent thinks that they are with, is with them? I mean, it's so huge, and I think again we're going to see a massive change in what the core has been. Any thoughts from you, Carolyn, on this before we move back to Louvre after I kind of diverted us back here?
No, but I really think DeLuca really needs to work hard to save herself because not only is she in my draft, but I really want her to stay, and I think that she's going to be in trouble soon. So I really think she needs to do whatever she can to save herself.
Yeah, also just a small point, the Triple K alliance has been something that a couple of different people have been speculating about over the past few days. So to see confirmation of that, I think is also making people uneasy because I think people were kind of unsure, especially where Katie stood, and so to see her paired up with Chris and Cody, of course, is making some people a little nervous as well. So right now that group is sort of speculating, do we bring in Katie? And then we have to instead, target someone who isn't Cody or Chris as to not disturb that threesome alliance. So there are a lot of like dynamics at play, and just like having all of this information is giving Danny and Gabriel in particular, who are talking through it the most, giving them a lot to think about what the smartest move here is, because people are connected in a lot of different ways, and if they choose to share this information with the wrong person, it could really collapse easily, just as quickly as it kind of came together. But yeah, I could like
And they
honestly
keep
talk
going.
about this for an hour because I'm like so excited about what's gonna happen. But sorry, someone else, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, like, we see a lot of action coming from that tribe because they've had to go to tribal twice. Whereas, like, Louvre, like, they went to tribal, but Adrian just quit. So they didn't really, like, nothing really shook up. They didn't really know that Nick was actually going to be the one leaving. I mean, everybody voted for him, but nobody was certain that that had actually happened. So, just a lot of just hanging out on that tribe, like, nothing really crazy going on over there.
Yeah, and so a lot in flux over at Guggenheim. I don't think there's a clear target emerging right now because they're trying to figure out, how to spread this information in the most clandestine but also, impactful way. But what would happen, do you think, if the CJ curse does not hold Nico and Louvre ends up going to tribal next time?
Okay, my unmute is working. Apologies about that. I was trying to jump in earlier, but we move on. Yeah, so Louvre has had an interesting sort of episode as well, despite not going to tribal yet again. As I mentioned earlier, there was the invite from Conrad to Brian after much discussion between. So I think at this, like before this had happened, I would have said that the core sort of trio on Louvre were Andy, Conrad, and Tom as like a really powerful trio that seemed to use their alliance chat a lot and really seemed to have each other's best interests at heart. We did see a bit of a disagreement, if we want to go that far, between Conrad and Tom about who their sixth would be, other than Jesse and not just Justin was the other person floated besides Brian. So ultimately, Tom kind of relents and says, "Sure, let's go for Brian." And Conrad is the one to message him. And in the way he does it, Brian is able to work out that he's probably not a central part of this six. And so from there, he leaks to Hunter, who has had difficulties with both Nick and Talia from last round. And funnily enough, Conrad was the one specifically who asked Hunter to do damage control. So now we have Brian talking with Hunter about the idea of reconnecting with Nick and Talia to get out Conrad of all people. So we've seen Conrad go from sort of a power position in this sort of core trio to now potentially being at risk if things were to change. And again, I think this is just one of those tribes where it's hard to say definitively what will happen. But the fact that there was this kind of six established and it seemed like a good call to kind of get a majority, it could now just completely be taken apart already. So what do we think about the idea of Nick, Talia, and uh, Hunter getting back together? Do we think it's likely that Nick and Talia will go for that?
I don't, but again, they don't have that many options. So, I mean, if anyone can make it happen, I think it's Brian. What do you think, Carolyn?
I mean, I think they'll do it because who says no to an alliance except John on our season? Said no to Matt right away. But usually you say yes to alliances, right? Like you say, like, yes, I'll definitely work with you. But Talia does not trust Hunter at all. It will take a lot for Hunter to regain trust with her. So I don't think that they're actually going to be a real alliance and work together.
What I do wonder though is if they're able to leak and confirm that Nick was actually the true target in week one and that the people that Nick and Talia thought they had were all lying to them, if that gives them the sort of motivation to think, crap, we're like on a sinking ship. We need to do something different, even if it's not what we who we want to work with. It might be who we have to work with. So I do wonder if they're presented with that information, will they believe it? Will it be enough? I'm definitely excited to see because the tensions have been bubbling, and it's interesting to see when people are willing to put game over personal. But you mentioning about saying yes to alliances actually made me remember some other thing, another thing I saw in the alliance chat of Andy, Conrad, and Tom. Tom had made a comment that to me would have really stood out. So he said something like, I think Justin is someone we can trust because he's very similar to me in that he'll work with people that want to work with him. And I don't know, what do we think about saying this to an alliance? To me, it screams, I'll say yes to an alliance, which I know is an sort of spoken rule that you do, but I feel like saying it to other people can just kind of undermine a bit of the trust with them and make them think that, well, is that just what you're doing with us? Is it just lip service?
It's terrible. I did not read that. Like, that is not a good move for him to say.
Yeah, so they were what I would have pegged as the sort of core three, and I worry about where this is going to go. Meanwhile, I wasn't really noticing that Floyd and Hunter are becoming quite the duo, and I noticed their top four trust rankings completely mirror each other, with each other being their number ones, and then Brian, Justin, and Andy being the two, three, and four. So this is another pair to watch because I think Hunter has managed to get themselves in a bit of sticky situations throughout. Um, so I would love to see if they stay longer. Most of these people, to be honest, it's just such a wild tribe. And truth be told, I don't know that I want any of them to go because I'm just enjoying the conflict. But I suppose we get the most juiciness when the kind of conflict's enacted and someone gets voted out. So that's kind of where we're at over on Louvre. Um, any more thoughts on Louvre before we kind of move on?
I agree that the Hunter Floyd pair is definitely one to watch. Floyd has been very under the radar in a really good way. Nobody's been throwing his name out or anything. He's just kind of been keeping his head down and integrating really well. And Hunter has done the exact opposite of that. So I'd love to see seeing the two of them connecting. I think they're a really unlikely pair. I don't know if people are going to clock that they're working together. I think Hunter's done a good job reintegrating themselves after the fiasco of last week, and having an ally like Floyd could be really, really crucial for them if they end up going to tribal sometime soon. So I'm really interested to see how that pair works out. Also, I don't know if we talked about earlier or not. I can't remember. There's been a lot going on. Did we talk about like the making of the six-person alliance with Conrad, doing it in like the least suave way possible, bringing in Brian? Because I know there was some conflict within that smaller group of who they should bring in as their six, and the way Conrad went about it was awful, and I hated every second of it. And Brian, of course, immediately clocked that they were being brought in as a sixth person into an alliance, so that was interesting.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, Conrad was someone I unfortunately sort of like pegged as a potential first boot just because sometimes the way he says things can be sort of very like on the nose. But then he surprised me by kind of getting into that core three. But now I think we're seeing a bit of where that's kind of coming into play again, with sometimes just the way he's delivered things not always being the smartest. I think he's very good strategically, and I think he would be able to himself identify seeing that why that might not be smart. But sometimes I know I'm guilty of this myself. In real time, you just type something or say something, and then before you know it, it's sent, and then you've kind of got to deal with it. I don't know that he's realized in this case that's exactly what he's done. But yeah, just really unfortunate that he would have had a six together, and it would have made sense. And now he could be looking at the person that they're looking at for the next vote. Um, I don't know what more to say on it. It's just such a shame. And have we spoken about the fact that his about me talks about it's a quote about like how smart and like keeping his wits and stuff like that. And that's just I don't know how much stock people put into these about me's, but I think it gives you a bit of flavor of people. And if you're kind of broadcasting that in a sense, it would be something I would worry about. Karen, was this something you ever looked into, sort of people's about me's, and did it shape your like opinions of them beyond just speaking with them?
Honestly, I didn't do my research. I didn't really look at that. I really just looked at profile pictures. And I don't know if you guys have talked about this, but having an actual profile picture makes such a difference to me because you really can see them as like an actual person and not like just, a game thing. And actually Chase today was talking about changing his picture. Or yesterday, sorry. He was talking about changing his picture to his actual face. And they were like, no, 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 I like your picture, but I really think it'll help his game. So for me, I think it's not really the about me, because I didn't look at that, but more about the profile picture because you see that all the time. Like you always see their profile picture pop up when you talk to them.
Yes, I think that's a huge point, and it's something that they've been talking about quite a bit. Conrad, on one hand, is someone who's changing his picture every single day, apparently for something going on in a different server, so that's been clocked. And Gabriel's been someone who has immediately emotionally connected with people whose pictures that he can see. And today he was kind of like, wait, if I'm feeling that way, I should put my pictures myself, so hopefully people will feel more attached to me. And so he added his today. Like you said, Chase added a photo today as well. So they're all kind of picking up on this as a strategy to uh, bring more connections together. And it's something we talked about preseason as well. And we noticed that last season, everybody in the top three had an actual picture of themselves as their profile picture, whether that's coincidence or not. So it is something that they're thinking about. Whether or not it's having a huge impact of the game, I don't know. But it's definitely something that they're clocking, Carolyn. So that's a good point.
I instantly liked Gabriel more once he put a picture on, so I think it does really help.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
I'm.
totally
Go ahead.
agree. Sorry.
Sorry.
Yeah, and I was going to say we spoke to Andrew from last season. That was one of the things he said was a big factor in who he could trust, and I think that generally is something that kind of transitions people from someone in a game to like a real sort of 3D person. And yeah, as you mentioned, he spoke about how he saw it in other people and wanted to do it for himself. We've seen Chase do it. And yeah, just seeing, I think Katie, I can't remember if she changed her picture, but just the fact that she now had a dog just made everything a bit more real and made him doubt voting her out. So it is a powerful thing in this game. And just instead of it being a game move, as soon as you kind of make it personal, I think people have a lot more reservations about what they're willing to do in this game and how they're going to feel about it. Because ultimately, we're not sacrificing like our like quote unquote morals and stuff for money at the end of the day. It's all for fun. So if that stops becoming fun for anyone, that can be a really big deal. Hopefully, everyone can still kind of keep things in the parameters of the game. I think that will obviously still happen, but it's just another thing to consider when uh, the harder you make it for someone to vote you out, like it makes sense. Um, so yeah, just curious how that's going to impact because we're still early days. We've seen many sort of iterations of trust rankings change from last episode. I think they've been a bit less turbulent this time, but yeah, we're still in the early days where things can massively change. And I want to say that we'll come on next week and everything we thought that was going to happen is going to happen, but I have a feeling that these lot will keep us on our toes.
Who are on the top and the bottom of Louvre? I couldn't find any trust rankings like mapped out. Do you know?
I actually have gone ahead and from what I've seen, have gone ahead and calculated them. So bear with me one sec while I get it up. So we do have Andy up at the top with an average score of 3.8, 3.6, sorry. So this isn't, so a lot of people haven't fully filled things out or filled them out at all. But then we have just behind him with 3.75 is Jesse, surprisingly. So Jesse is someone that's been pegged as potentially one of the people running the show. Do we know where people have actually got this perception from? Because it's not. I don't think I've seen a lot of Roman confessionals in particular. So I'm wondering if things are going on behind the scenes, or maybe there's something you guys have seen that maybe I have not.
I still feel like I don't know her, just how I feel like I don't really know Katie. So I'm kind of confused where that came from as well. Like, I don't know where it must be like group chats or DMs because I'm getting none of it from confessionals.
Right, yeah, so that's exactly what I was at. So we have those two at the top, and then literally, so she was 3.75, and just behind her in joint third is Brian and Justin. And that's quite surprising to me because Justin was someone who in the first vote was potentially going to be the sort of first boot again, and we've seen how what a difference a round can make. So these clutch immunities can really come in handy. Obviously, it didn't wasn't enough for Mars to kind of get away from that this time. Um, but yeah, that's pretty much where we're at. Then we have Tom, which I expected to be see actually a bit higher. And then followed by Tom, we have Floyd. Then we have Conrad, and then we have Hunter, Nick, and then Talia. So Nick and Talia in the bottom spot, and Talia's actually taken that very last spot, which is a shame to see because I think she's giving us good confessionals, but I think that sort of energy might slightly be translating through some of her messages, not completely. Talia is someone who'd mentioned not wanting to use voice chat, which was a thing that we've seen people talking about, especially from last season, and then that's even kind of filtered through into this season as something to be almost deliberately weaponized to kind of build bonds. Um, was that something that was big for you, Carolyn? I guess the whole seeing people is one thing to kind of help build like a fuller picture of someone, but it's stuff like speaking to people in voice chat. Do you think a big thing?
Well, at first I didn't think it was a big thing until it was being brought up that everybody was voice chatting without me, and I'm like, okay, well, I think I need to voice chat more and I need to be talking to people. And I did make a connection with like Matthew. Him and I would talk all the time, and I never got that he was boring at all. And I told him this the other day. Um, but everybody was like, "Oh, he's so boring in his cons. He's boring like in whatever." But I never got that from him from BC. I actually really enjoyed talking to him. So I think it would have changed my perception of him had we not done BC. I know a lot of people thought, B was really charming with her accent and everything, so that really helped her as well. And yeah, Ryan telling me he doesn't want to VC, he hates VC, he doesn't want to do it. I don't know if it's like untrustworthy, but it didn't feel good, like to not be able to talk to him and him being closed off.
Yeah, we do see, I think, that just the act of withholding in any sense can be something that makes people a bit sort of sketched out. I'm sure they might not consciously be doing it, but it's just some indication of you not kind of fully giving yourself. We obviously saw, unfortunately, CJ go in that first spot as someone who was kind of gave sort of vague answers for things like his age. So I think anytime you're not willing, and I know it's a lot to expect of people, but anytime there's an opportunity to give a piece of yourself and people don't, I think that's something that people can maybe not consciously hold against you, but I think it does make a difference as far as like how much you can trust someone.
Yeah, I mean, CJ is saying like he's in his 20s slash 30s. Like, is he 21 or is he 39? Like, there's a big difference. And for him to just not like stick to any kind of age, it's like, I don't understand. Just tell them an age. It doesn't have to be real. But the fact that you won't say it is really alarming.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, I feel like just picking a decade would have made a huge difference and still kind of giving it a range. But yeah, ultimately, that is what happened. I feel like we've managed to cover a lot in today's episode. Is there anything else that's been left unsaid that you guys want to touch upon?
No, we've already gotten the next reward challenge. It's almost done, and we're gonna get the immunity challenge announcement soon. So the game is moving fast. So I'm really excited to see the fallout from on both tribes, honestly. Even though Louvre didn't have to vote anyone out, but of course on Guggenheim, how this leaked alliances scandal is going to affect things for the next vote.
I'm super excited for that.
Yes, we have a lot of things up in the air. Who knows what is ultimately going to happen in these next, I guess, even couple hours, let alone days. So definitely kind of watch this space. Um, Thank you so much, Carolyn, for being on with us, especially for that challenge breakdown. That was super helpful, and I appreciate that, even down to the minute. So that was really cool. It's been so much having fun having you, and I hope you've enjoyed kind of being on with us because I know I certainly have.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It was so much fun. I will come back anytime you all want, so just let me know.
Yeah, Carolyn, it's been just a delight to have you in Spec Lounge. You were gone too soon last season, but I love that you're still active this season and keeping up with everything. So that's been really valuable to have you, and again, really helpful to have you, especially for the challenge stuff. Because I was so sad I couldn't be in the VCs for that because I expected some chaotic things to happen. But hopefully there'll be many more chaotic challenges this season, and I'm really looking forward to it. So unless anyone has anything else, this has been the Art of the Spiel. And thank you guys for joining us. Bye.
Bye.
Hi, everyone.